Philadelphia, get ready to be inspired. If you need help finding the light in the darkness, don't touch that dial. Let's navigate life through the lens of hope with Scotty P. Inspirational speaker Scotty P speaks the importance of mental health in society and encourages techniques to overcome the everyday mental health obstacles that hold us back in life. It's not just inspiration, it's Scotty P inspiration.
All right, everybody. Hello to another episode of the Scotty P Inspiration Show today for you. Thank you for joining us on this Monday morning again. And for all of you who join us every week, I'm super appreciative that you continue to follow the show. And I hope that you can take something positive away from it today. So for all of you just joining, my name is Scott Prendergast, aka Scotty P. I'm your host of your show. And my whole goal is that I want you to navigate your life through the lens of hope through the stuff that we talk about in this show today. So I'm super excited. Got another great topic for you today to help you kick your Monday off on a positive note so you can take these things and apply it to your life right here, right now, today. Okay. So today, for those of you that don't know, I like to jump right into things. And for today's topic, I want to talk about, are we falling into place or allowing things to fall apart? And what I mean by this is a perspective-based kind of title. And that's what this whole show is going to be about today, is perspective and how we're viewing the different challenges that we face and have in our lives. So I have a quote, because I like to always start with a quote here. That's everybody who watches this show knows that. And the quote that I want to start with today is as followed. Your perspective will either become your prison or your passport. I'm going to say that again. Your perspective will either become your prison or your passport. And this is by somebody that is unknown. I love this quote because it's so true, right? Because our perspective, it really does dictate how we're going to go about our lives. Whether we're going to step out into the unknown and try new things in our lives, or if we're going to lock ourselves in our own mental prison, it all depends on our perspective and how we're viewing situations. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, everybody, let's us dive into it. Let's go. Okay. First thing that I wrote down that I really want to address for this show today was really kind of asking you a question. And it's a question that I know the answer to, but I think it's a good way to start with the basics of this teaching, if you will, for what we're going to be talking about. Are we really and the question is this: are we constantly at war with ourselves over trying to move through the difficulties of our lives? And I want you, the listener, to think about that, because as you know, I like to make this show listener-centric, but I want you to think about that. Are you constantly at war with yourself when it comes to trying to move through the difficulties of your life? And I ask this because this is something I've dealt with for years. And I find that I sometimes am my own worst enemy, and it's something I've really come a long way in working through. But what I found is that when we're at war with ourselves every day over different situations, different problems, different struggles, we don't seem to really get anywhere. Instead, we just kind of stew and find a way to try to grab a hold of a new problem that we have, or find a way of a new excuse not to move through something, right? So when we're at war with ourselves, nothing is happening. We're not making any progress at all. So what I think is important for you, the listener, to understand today is that if you do find yourself at war with yourself, with a situation or a problem you can't get past, or just a mindset of this back and forth mentality that's keeping you stuck, I think the first and most important thing is for you to be able to say, okay, what is the problem? What is the situation before anything else? Because a lot of times people won't even realize what the problem with the situation is that they're at war with themselves over, right? So it begins with that. And I think that's something that we want to kind of build a foundation upon as we're talking throughout this show today. But it starts with that. Are you at war with yourself? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, we're going to talk about how to move through that. If the answer is no, then you're already past that. Okay? No big deal. So to build off of that, one of the things that I wrote is that in the spirit of finding a new perspective, in the spirit of overcoming those downing thoughts, I wrote down that instead of... Actually, no, I want to rephrase it a different way. Okay. So here's what I wrote. I want us to look at what we've been through. All right? Think about what you've been through. Everybody has different stuff that they've been through. Now, when it comes to these things that we've been through, there's usually two ways to look at it. First way could be like this. Look at what you've been through and how it's hurt you. Okay? The second way to look at it is look what you've learned because of what you've been through. And I feel like that every challenge, every difficulty, every sadness, every unfortunate thing that's ever happened to anybody in this life, we have a choice to look at it two different ways. Look what I've been through and how it's hurt me, or look what I've learned because of what I've been through. Now, this is one of the most difficult things in the world to do, because as humans, for whatever the reason is, I don't have the answer to this, we want to look at situations and we almost kind of want to stew in them, right? We want to almost feel sorry for ourselves because of what we've been through. And we want to sit there and just say, well, because of this, I can't do that. Or because I went through this, I'll never be that. And I don't know why we do this, but I know that we do. And there's a time and a place for it. I agree. But I think at some point we have to get to the position where we change that perspective. And instead of saying, wow, look what I've been through and how it's hurt me, we flip that to look what I've learned because of what I've been through. And that type of change of perspective is the beginning to a whole new life. That type of change of perspective is the beginning of doing something that you haven't done before. That change of perspective is the beginning of becoming the person that you've always dreamt to be instead of just being what circumstances told you had to be. And it all starts with a little thing called perspective. Don't underestimate the power of it. So for you, the listener, today, look, I don't know what you've been through or what you're going through. I don't. But I know that it's probably something painful to you, and that's already valid because it's happening to you. But what I want you to do today is to really ask yourself, which perspective am I saying when it comes to this destructive thing in my life? Am I saying, look what I've been through and how it's hurt me? Or am I saying, look what I've learned because of what I've been through? Just something for you to keep in mind, something to give some encouragement, something to give you a little bit of light to flip that perspective so that you don't dwell and go to war against yourself in your mind because of what you've been through. Okay? So as we're moving forward a little bit here, I think when it comes to this topic and the title of the message is going to be falling into place or falling apart, perspective is something that takes time. I think a lot of times people say, oh, just change your perspective. It's something that you can do overnight. Or I changed my perspective and it completely changed my life. And I got a Bentley in 7 days and I can tell you how to do the same thing too. Oh, just change your perspective. That's all you have to do. It's simple. But let's just be real here. It's not simple. It's not easy. It's not always fun, especially when you've had a perspective with something that's been the same for 4 or 5 years or 10 or 12 years. Especially when the situation that's causing you pain, you don't see how anything could possibly come good from it. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy and that it's something that you just change your perspective and tomorrow you're going to feel great. It takes time. It takes time, and it's almost like we have to loosen the grip of the hold that we have on that pain, and we have to kind of let it go a little bit. Because I think a lot of times we hold on to this pain so tightly because in a way we want other people to validate us for it and say, look what I've been through. Look what these people did to me. I would be something great if it wasn't for these people or this thing. And in a way, I feel like we use our trials and difficulties as an excuse not to become the people that we truly are meant to be. And I know that's a little deep, and I know that might not be something that is a real sexy thing to say that everyone loves, but I do think there's some truth to it. But at the same time, I know that we can move past it. And I know that because I'm a living example of that, as somebody who used to hold on to that pain and say, look what these people put me through, and I would have been something so much more if it wasn't for this, until I learned to let go of that, to separate what happened from how I felt about it, and learn to acknowledge it as something that's done, is over, cannot be changed. But what I realized that could be changed is how I was viewing it on a day-to-day basis. Right? Think of this, friends. The progress is in the pain. The lesson is in the lived-in experience. Right? The progress is in the pain. The lesson is in the lived-in experience. So these things, they're not pleasant, but they serve a great purpose in our lives. And nobody views it that way as it's going on and as it's happening. No. But if we can move through it just enough and get ourselves through that difficult time just enough and give ourselves just a little bit of hope to keep moving forward through that time enough, we will get to a point where we're able to see the purpose behind it. But it does take some time. But if we can remember that there's progress in every pain and there's lesson in every lived-in experience, I think that's gonna kind of cut down on things, right? I think that's going to kind of cut down on the delay of the time of the sulking period, of the sad period, of the anger period. It'll cut down on it if we know that there's progress to be had in this pain and lesson in that experience. So this is something I'm talking about for you listeners that might not be the easiest thing to digest. It may not be something that you're going to love absolutely right now, but I want you to keep this in mind. And when you're going through that difficult time, when you find yourself going to war against yourself, when you feel like you're falling apart instead of falling into place, I want you to say to yourself, there's progress in the pain. There's a lesson in this lived in experience. Write it on a sticky note, put it on your fridge, do whatever you have to do, but just remember that. So that when you hit that point, it'll give you just a little bit of something to say, it's not all bad here. It's not all bad right now. This is temporary. I will get through this. And remember that this process, this painful process, something's going to come from it that's going to be good. So in the meantime, I just got to keep finding a way to keep that hope in my life and keep moving forward instead of getting stuck and stagnant. All right, and we're going to talk about more ways to do this when we come back from the commercial, everybody. So do not go anywhere. We got a lot more content to still talk about. We will be back real quick after these quick commercial breaks. Don't go anywhere. It's Scotty P Inspiration. Let's go.
Hey everyone, Eric Katz here, the owner of Katz Dogs Canine. Are you working from home and need to get your dog out running around for the day? Will you be traveling this summer and looking for a place to board your pup? Is your dog looking a little shaggy and need a haircut or bath? Are you looking forward to walking around and enjoying this beautiful weather, but you can't because your dog's pulling like a freight train? Well, you're in luck. We are a one-stop shop that focuses on daycare, boarding, grooming, and training. We are located at 35 Middle Road, Percy, PA, on 10 beautiful acres. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Katz Dogs Canine or our website, katzdogscanine.com. Our phone number is 855-KATZ-DOG, 855-528-9364.
What's going on, everyone? This is Scott Prendergast here, aka Scotty P. Real quick, I want to talk to you about my business. It's called Scotty P Inspiration. And what I am is I'm an inspirational speaker, and I want to help others navigate life through the lens of hope. Now, I do this through speaking engagements, but also one-on-one life coaching. So if you're interested in booking me or doing some of that coaching, let me know. Check me out at www.scottypinspiration.com or check out my Instagram at scottyp_inspo. Find Yourself Boxes was created to foster the connection between a person and those in life who may be working through mental health challenges by providing curated and customizable boxes filled with research-backed wellness products that promote healing. Coupling personal experience with professional mental health guidance, Find Yourself Boxes meets people where they are on their journey. Wellness doesn't look the same for every person, and these products are packaged together to touch various aspects of our wellness spectrum. Find your healing with Find Yourself Boxes at findyourselfboxes.com, and you can get 20% off your first purchase.
All right, everybody, welcome back again to another episode of the Scotty P Inspiration Show. I'm your host, Scott Prendergast, aka Scotty P, and I'm super excited for this episode today. We're talking about, are we falling apart or falling into place? And it is all about perspective and how to kind of switch that around and flip that around, okay? So for anyone, real quick, though, got to say this because it's a must. If you want to watch any previous episodes of my show, you can do so by searching the Scotty P Inspiration Show on any major podcast platform. In addition to that, you can also go on my website, which is scottypinspo.com, or you can go on any of my social media, my YouTube, Scotty P Inspiration, search that, and you can watch previous episodes as well. Okay, so everybody, we're diving back in here. We've been talking about perspective and how to kind of flip that and switch that around a little bit, go from falling apart to falling into place. Here's one of the things that I really am excited about to talk about that I wrote down. It's simple, but it goes like this. How are we looking at our lives? Are we looking at it by saying where I'm going or where I've been? Oh, we're going to dive a little bit deeper, so get ready. Yee. Am I looking at it by where I'm going or where I've been? Here's what I mean by this. If we look at our lives completely about where we've been, and that's all we ever focus on is where we've been, the trials, the tribulations, the sadness, the pain, the anger, the hurt, what didn't go right, what was unfair. If that's all that we look at, we're never going to be able to know where we're going. We're never going to be able to get to where we're going because we're too stuck in the past. Right? It's almost like we're living in this illusion of what was so that we can never see what's going to be because we're so stuck on where we've been and not focused on where we're going. Right. And I think it's important to understand that we do have to know where we've been and we do have to reflect on that because that's an encouraging thing and it shows us the progress that we've made. But when we focus on the negative things about where we've been, when we focus on the things that hurt us about where we've been all the time, it gets us off track because then we stop moving and it's almost like we're standing still and watching something from across the street, like a building just being demolished and we're not getting out of the way. because we're just completely glued to the allure of this mess, right? In the same way, when we focus completely on the mess of our past, whatever it is, we're not going to have a good kind of direction for where we're going, right? So one of the things for you, a strategy, if you will, that I want you to really take away from this episode today is ask yourself, am I focused on where I'm going or am I focused on where I've been? And it's a balance of having both. But ultimately, when we're talking about difficulties, we want to make sure that we're keeping more of that focus on where we're going and acknowledging that where we've been has led us here, and that's a good thing. But we don't have to stay stuck in that. Okay, so where am I going or where I've been? Question for you is, which one are you focusing on more throughout the day? Another way to kind of analogy to put this is as follows. I use this a lot. I've said it a lot during my presentations and different things that I've worked with people, but I think it's great. And it goes like this. There's an old quote that says, every brick has a story to tell. But here's how I like to look at this. I like to look at our lives as if they are a brick house. Okay, and I imagine that in this brick house that makes up our lives, each individual brick is a different experience that we've had. So I want you to picture this brick house and look like you're looking at this brick house, and each individual brick is a different experience. Now imagine some of them are gold. They represent the good experiences. Some of them are chipped. And they represent the not so good experiences, okay? Now, my question to you is that when you look at your house, when you look at your life's house, what are the first bricks that you're focusing on? Are they the gold ones? Or are they the chipped ones? Now, the answer to that question is not going to mean anything to me, but it's going to mean a whole lot to you about what you're focusing on throughout your day-to-day basis. And whether you're viewing your life's house as falling into place or falling apart. So something to keep in mind, just a little metaphor for you to keep in your head as we're going throughout here, okay? I think it's something that's always made a difference for me, that metaphor, and it's very eye-opening because I remember sometimes where I just totally focused on those chip bricks. I need to step back and remember there's gold bricks in that house too. And that it is a house, not just one little corner of a few bricks that I don't like. Keep that in mind, friends, as we roll on here. So as we're going, we still got some time left in the show here. One of the things that I wrote down too, I think is really important that can help us when it comes to trying to work through and navigate through our mindset and focusing on positive things instead of all the negative is really what I call taking inventory. And what I mean by this is taking a second, taking some time to whether write down or make a list or just become cognizant of what it is that you're taking inventory about with your whole situation. And what I mean by that is that when you're in a situation in your life, no matter what it is, are you looking at the entire situation? Or are you only focusing on the things that are causing you strife, pain, anger, sadness, weakness, whatever it might be? And you'd be surprised how many people don't view the entirety of a situation. They only view the parts that are not good. They only view the bricks, so to speak, that are chipped. They only view the problems, the issues, the things that make them upset. And again, I don't have an answer as to why we do that as humans. I couldn't tell you. I wish I knew. It would make things a lot easier for all of us. But the fact is we do it. Okay? But the first step to overcoming that is realizing we're doing it. And the next step is realizing to view the entire situation and take inventory of everything with that situation. The lessons, the progress, as well as the difficulties. But not only the difficulties, okay? So for you, the listener today, think of a situation that's causing you some pain, some difficulties, whatever it might be. And I want you to start taking inventory of the whole situation. And by inventory, start focusing, writing down the struggles of it, but also what good's going to come from it. Start writing down the things that make you mad about it. Start writing down the things that potentially could be good from it. Start writing down the stuff about it that you think is unfair. Start writing down the stuff about it, how it could lead you to something great. Take inventory of the entire situation, my friend. And you know what that's going to do? It's going to take the sting. It's going to take the sadness. It's going to take the pain out of it a little bit more. Because now it's a situation that offers some progress instead of something that's only going to offer pain. So, what are you taking inventory of, friends? Keep that in mind. While I was going through this, as we come towards the end here, we're going to do a little bit of a quicker episode today, mainly because my computer battery is kind of low and I want to make sure I get this out here for everybody. But while I was coming up with all this, it made me think of one of my favorite analogies from nature, really. And it really kind of goes along the lines of this. Consider how a pearl is made. right? I said pearl as in what oysters make. Pearls, like what people wear around their neck, the earrings. Pearls are beautiful. For thousands of years, people have loved them and collected them. They're a beautiful thing, right? But have you ever really known how a pearl is actually made? Okay, well, I'll give you a little bit of insight on that. Essentially, what happens is within this oyster, there becomes an irritant that gets in the inside. So whether it's a piece of sand or something foreign from the ocean or whatever gets into that oyster shell. It gets into the inside part where it's soft and it irritates it. It irritates the oyster. It's a foreign substance that gets in there that is causing some type of ruckus, and it's not supposed to be in there, whether it's a grain of sand, whatever it is, okay? But rather than the oyster just shutting down and dying, rather than the oyster just giving up and saying, all right, well, piece of sand here, just whatever, you know what happens? A process then happens, a process that ensues within the oyster that uses that irritant, that grain of sand, whatever it is. And the process that ensues is what creates a pearl. So it's because that very irritant, that foreign substance outside of the shell that's not supposed to be there, that gets in there, that's the very thing that creates that beautiful pearl that we all love, that people pay so much money for. So what does this tell you about life? What can we learn about this? Well, what I think we can really learn from this is that, look, first off, no matter how hard we try, there's going to be irritants that get into our life. I mean, an oyster, have you ever seen a closed up oyster? That thing is locked tight, bro. Like, this is not something you can just open up and say, oh, look at this. No, that thing is locked up. So the fact that something can still get into that tells me that no matter how hard we try, there's going to be problems in this life. No matter how hard we try, things are going to get difficult and be unfair. It is going to happen. So buckle up and get ready, okay? That's the first thing that I learned from that. The second thing I learned from that, though, is that just because this thing gets in there, just because this piece of irritant, this sand gets into this oyster, look what the oyster does. It takes something that originally was meant to harm it and it ends up becoming something beautiful, right? And that's what God does in our lives. Something that was meant for harm, he turns it into something good. So in the same way, when we're going through some struggles in our lives, we don't have to let this thing completely destroy us. We don't have to let this piece of sand, if you will, completely knock us out for the count. This irritant in your life, this difficulty in your life can give birth to something incredible if you allow yourself to view it that way. If you allow yourself to keep fighting, if you allow yourself to keep moving forward and work with that irritant to find something good from it, to see the progress in it, instead of viewing it as a thing that's going to come and just take you out. So sometimes I think we need to be humbled a little bit, and maybe there's something that we can learn from that lowly little oyster and its process of making a pearl, right? So friends, really to wrap up the episode and end this for you today, look, when it comes to this life, I really believe that every difficulty we have this choice to view that difficulty as it's something that's going to make us fall apart or fall into place. And I hope today you choose to realize that it's helping things to fall into place. Because there is not a single thing that will happen in your life. There's not a single trial. There's not a single bad thing that is going on that you cannot take something good from at some point. Will you be able to take good from it immediately? Probably not. Are you going to sing for joy every time something bad happens to your life? No. But what you can do is be like the oyster. Take that irritant, do some work on it, give it some time. Use some things in your life, use some mixtures, mix it together, but allow that irritant to be something that's going to create a better version of you and something beautiful, instead of something that's going to keep you completely stuck and stagnant. So everybody, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Scotty P Inspiration Show on this Monday. Thank you all for tuning in. Tune in again next week. We've got more awesome content for you. I cannot wait for it. I'm super excited for all the more that there is to come with this show. So thank you so much again, everybody. Tune in again next week. I will see you later. This is Scotty P signing off.